Most of you has gone to university and you have used lecture accounts and you have some assumptions and some reasoning and you have some conclusions. I have no assumptions, no reasoning, and no conclusions. I have a lot of pictures, and this picture means a lot to me. Whether they mean something for you, I don't know. Take what you want. This is when you see a piece of art. Sometimes say something, sometimes says nothing. And sometimes it's very difficult to find out what it wants to say. The first word in this is culture. And culture is usually defined as the opposite of nature. It's the integrated part of human behavior that includes thought, speech, action, and artifacts, and depends on the human capacity for learning and transmitting knowledge to the next generation. This is a very general abstract definition, because what is culture? If we start thinking about, for instance, what is Peruvian culture, I have a difficulty to define it after this definition, because I don't think there is anything that is called Peruvian culture. There is a lot of different cultures mixed together. Even the language is not the same. Half of the Peruvian population doesn't talk Spanish. So, but if we want to know a little more about culture, we have to be more concrete, and in one picture you have a kind of military culture, military training. You can see the guys suffering on the stones to really be a He-Man, ready for war. And in the other picture you see a group of people, artists enjoying life, sitting there, and to mark that they belong to the same tribe, they have put their face dark. They are together. What characterizes our culture, the so-called developed world, is modernism. It's the departure from tradition and the use of innovative forms of expression that distinguish many styles in the arts and the literature. The rich words, as Nietzsche wrote, had killed God. Religion plays actually no central role. Although many are members of the same church, actually they are not defined. Even they don't read the norms or rules of their church. I am a Catholic, and I am not any longer a Catholic. I was brought up as a Catholic, but I think many of my parents and family who were very Catholic, they never follow the rules. But in the Catholic Church, you have something that you can ask for forgiveness. So every week people will say, I was at this and that and that. You don't have this in the Protestant Church, so you have a problem. And this has also something to do with art. What is art was changed completely. This is not my bed. Try to see Emin's bed has been cost a fortune if you want to buy this bed. And on the other side, we have what we call the primitive cultures. And this is usually lacks economic development, lacks technology, and lacks modernity. Okay? But if you look at these guys, I'm fascinated the like to the right, teenagers sitting together and discussing what to put in their bodies. And I think there is not very much difference. I have two girls, and actually they do the same. Then you find very strange things. I am coming from Peru, so I am another day. And sometimes you can see that modernism is combined with primitivism. You can see people very primitive. They love these things in their faces, appropriating some signs and symbols from the so-called primitive world. They are the modern primitives, and you see the guy shouting, a hooligan expressing a kind of, I don't know, he's from England probably, a very nationalist person. You can also see primitive connected with nationalism. This is a fantastic picture because Denmark is playing humble with France. And Denmark made the last goal where they were equal. And you can see the picture, you can see who are Danes there. So this primitive reaction is I don't know, you can see some royalty, some prince and some things there. So, but in our country, in Denmark and the rest of Europe, you have the problem what we call immigrants. But immigrants are very different in some way. This guy to the left, he is originally from Kenya. He has no problem getting Danish nationality. He's wearing the Danish things. And why? Because he won a lot of medals. He was one of Danish people's own runner, because you can win these medals, these guys. And as all Danes who are rich and got a lot of money in sport, they're actually living in Monaco due to taxpayers. So he's very well integrated into Danish. But here to the right you have two others who are called first-generation immigrants, in the sense that the parents, either both, in the case of the girl to the left, the two parents are from Poland. The guy to the right, the parent is from France. According to the definition, they are first-generation immigrants and they are registered. I don't know to what extent the guy to the left, to the right is registered. I doubt that, because he's going to be the king of Denmark. But anyway, the definition. The other key word I have is identity, and it's a very complex concept to have. What is my identity? What I am? How could I define me? What is my idiocracy? And of course, psychologists has a way to define these things, to describe what is typically for you. And sociologists, they usually relate your identity to a group. You belong to this group and you have some social identities with it. But identity is a very complex. It's usually defined as a very static term, but it's an extremely dynamic term. Usually a way you can express your identity is through clothes, to fashion. You have two different, a primitive culture and a modern culture, but in a way they are expressing their being through fashion. Now, you can also have false identity. You can be a cat, but you want to look like a lion. Pedro, you are laughing. I think I'm touching you now. But then you have the girl who is connected through internet and is describing herself as 18, and actually she's a model. So we can have some wrong ideas about ourselves. Now, the idea of identity has been seen in art. The first guy, René Descartes, a French guy, of course, the guy who say, I think, therefore I am, the father of rationalism. Did you think about these pizza connections on trying to measure children about how clever it is? Everything starts with this French guy. That knowledge can be expressed with logic, mathematics, and rationality. And therefore, many artists have been criticized. For instance, Barbara Kruger made this well-known advertising, I shop, therefore I am. Sometimes when I'm looking to these shops with people going, near Christmas, this is crazy. And somebody has modified this and I say, I act, therefore I am, relating not to a static and, but what I am doing is my identity, a more dynamic word. This Indonesian, he also wants to tease. The modern one says, I suck, therefore I am. And here, a more collective way to see identity, I am we. I am in a group, and I define a relation.